Hello one and hello all and greetings one more time here on your favorite channel, Farmers of Thought, and it's a beautiful day here in Harare, and here on your afternoon channel. But today we're doing it in the morning, where we're discussing African politics, African science, African medicine, African governance, and fashion, music, art, crafts, agriculture, and everything else between. The whole idea is to allow the African children to discuss their problems and find their own African solution. Hello one and hello all. In the course of the night, we dream and we go places, and we reset our minds. Sleep is quite healthy. Sleeping is healthy because it allows the body to reset itself. I'll be very short for this morning, very short. Tag a friend, because this is going to change your perception. Feel free to share the video far and wide. We are not an entertainment page here. We are an educational page where we are assisting each other to think, to grow, to question, and develop a new African narrative. In the course of the night, my mind went very, very far to think about two things that I would like to share with you. Please share this video far and wide. Use it for feel free to use it for your TikTok, your Instagrams, your Facebooks, and any other platforms out there, until every African child understands the parables of the watcher, the parables of the observer of time. So here goes the story. There once upon a time, there was a family of dogs. They lived in the bush together as a family, and they had their own system where the matriarch or dog, the mother, would go out hunting and teach the children how to hunt, how to work together, and how to conquer the forest and feed themselves. And it so happened that one day some people came to the bush, and they captured some of the dogs, and they took them to their homes. So we ended up with two sets of dogs, the wild dogs and the domesticated dogs. The wild dogs continued their life, creating colonies and growing. The domesticated dogs started living with human beings, and the domesticated dogs started being fed by the master. They would be put in cages, they would be looked after, and they would be sold to other people, and sooner or later the homes of the community were full of dogs. And these dogs would sleep outside, barking, chasing wild animals away, and their business was now to become watchdogs and looking after the human being. Yeah, interesting. And once in a while, when the master got hungry and he wanted some meat, then the master would take his dogs, take his spears and his arrows. He would whistle as he gets into the jungle and into the bush to hunt for some meat. Lo and behold, a springbok over there, a kudu over there, an eland over there, or a wild boar over there. The dogs would run, the dogs would chase, the dogs would drop the animal, hold it, choke it. The master would come to the dogs and use his spear to finish them up, and then he would take his knife and then cut off the hooves of the animal, the front, back, and then he would throw the pieces to the dogs. Each dog would then take a piece of the meat or a bone or whatever, and then they run to the smallest, closest little bush there, and they would gnaw and chew on the bones. Then the master would take the rest of the carcass, the meat, and put it on his shoulder, and he would walk back home, and the master would then open up the animal and take all the pieces that he wants and put them on the side, then all the hard meat and useless stuff that he did not want to eat, and he would give his dogs. The dogs would be very happy. That was their feast for the day, feast of eating meat from the master's hands. The master would take the rest of the meat, go inside the house, and cook himself a meal with his children, and they would eat and floss their teeth. And while they're eating and having fun inside, the dogs then will be closed outside as the master is enjoying his meal and his rest with his children. Yeah, and then the meat gets finished and the dogs would go back to eating sasa, pap, ugali, eat the leftovers that the master was eating. Literally, the boss would cook his meal, eat with his family, and whatever had remained, and they would wash up the pots and pour in the water that has a smell of the food and mix it up with something and drop that to the dogs. The dogs were just happy to be eating the leftovers from their master's table. These are domesticated dogs who basically live on the handouts of the master. The story gets interesting, very interesting, because the dogs would always wait for the master to take them hunting, but they would never go hunting themselves. A domesticated dog would starve while it has the skills of hunting. Not a single day will the domesticated dogs wake up in the morning, go to the forest, and hunt for themselves. Only time they knew how to hunt is when the master goes, then they all run and go and hunt and be happy to eat leftovers when they actually did all the job and they did all the killing and they did everything and surrender and give everything to the master. We have two types of Africans. African number one is a wild African who would rather live in the laws of the jungle, fend for himself, hunt for himself, eat the animals that he wants, and select the choice pieces of the meat and eat with his family. But the domesticated dog would be just happy to be living in the master's house, And while in the master's house, be very excited, number one, to receive leftovers from the master. Number two, live on the leftovers from the master's table. Three, have his skills managed by the master. And I think as Africans, we need to start thinking, who were we before we became domesticated dogs? What were we before we became institutionalized dogs? What did we used to eat before we are given leftovers by the master at his house? The domesticated dog will make sure that he protects the master at all costs. Sleeping outside and bark and bark and bark to everything that seems to be threatening the master. Don't bark at religious threats. You are threatening the religion of the master. Hoof, hoof, hoof. Or bark at the master's economy. You can't do this, you can't do that. You can't drive a car. You can't. This belongs to our master. Get out of your car, Maponga J, and go back and ride donkeys. This is the master. You can use a cell phone because this is the master. You can't do this. You can't do that. Woof, woof. Protect the master at all costs. Because a domesticated dog, the priority is to make sure that the master is safe. While the wild dog knows no rules in its own jungle to fend for itself and look after itself. And once in a while, the wild dogs would come to the village where the master was staying and steal some sheep. It was the business of the domesticated dogs to chase away these dogs that are meant to be coming to eat from the master's flocks. And I think sooner or later, the wild dogs seem to have a free, better life than the domesticated dogs. So, the conclusion of the story, the master then dies. The master finally dies. The homestead collapses. Hunger strikes because no one is now here to feed the domesticated dogs. These dogs are not friends with the ones that are in the bush, and they've always been fighting with the dogs next door. So some of the dogs in the master's yard have to look for new addresses in the homes of new masters, next doors, there and there. But some of the domesticated dogs, they walked back into the jungle, where they were now strangers to family, to networks. In some certain times, even the skills of hunting had deteriorated to such a level that they would die in the jungle trying to reintegrate themselves with the cruel laws of the jungle. And I feel as Africans, as we see the constant deteriorating health of our master, the colonial master, we need to start deciding, do we sit around the grave of the master and moan, oh, it used to be nice in the days of the white men. It used to be nice in the days of apartheid. It used to be nice. You know, during those days when we would go hunting and the master would feed us, he'd take us to hospital and look after us. It was nice. And you've heard some of these domesticated dogs always glorifying and pontificating the beauty of staying in the master's house. But the wild dog fully understands that it was never meant to be domesticated. It could live by itself in the midst of a jungle that is difficult. I wish to conclude by saying you have to make a choice. You have to make that difficult decision to live as a domesticated dog, to change address, and from being a Christian, then you must become Hindu, then you must become Muslim, then you can become, Zoroastrianist, you can become Toyism, you can become that, change homes, change masters, because the colonial master has collapsed. Or you may just want to abandon domestication and go back and understand, relearn how to live and how to survive in the jungle. Life is a jungle. Life is a jungle where you need to be indigenous to the jungle. Understand the laws of community function, and appreciate your authenticity within the jungle, and refuse to be comforted by bones, by leftovers. Refuse to become a watchman at the door of your master. Remember, African child, you have the legs, you have the speed, you have the nose, you have the eyes. You can hunt, you can survive, you can live in this jungle, because that's where you are coming from. Refuse to protect the institutions of the master. Rather, start learning how to build and protect your own institutions and keep survival in the back of your mind. Because if we are not careful, we are all going to die together with the master. So 2 options, 3 options. When the master dies, you can remain at the house, cry at the grave of your master. 2, when the master dies, you can decide to look for a new home and continue to be domesticated. Option number 3, when the master dies, you can actually decide to reintegrate yourself with the jungle. That's where you come from. Reorient yourself. Reintroduce yourself. Find new colonies in the jungle and continue with life. It's a difficult decision to make. Very difficult decision to make. And I can see you are now a confused human being, according to Douglas Mental Tapera. Douglas Mental Tapera writes and says, you have now become confused. Very interesting, Mr. Tapera, that you can notice my confusion. Yes, there is confusion, because the master is losing his health. The master is dying slowly, I can see. And the question I'm asking myself, Mr. Tapera, is what will happen when they bury the master? What will I do, having lived in this domesticated house for such a long time? So yes, you're right. Confusion is part of solution finding. You may think that this is crazy from a very Platonic way of thinking, but if you apply your mind to what I am saying, Mr. Tapera, you may gain a little bit of understanding in terms of the world that we are living in. The African has been domesticated. His diet is now domesticated. His health is now domesticated. His medicines are now domestic medicines. If you look at his way of life, he's domesticated. You look at his banking, he's now domesticated. His fashion is now domesticated. And as it were, colonization found Africans in the wild jungle, as they say it, and they brought the Africans out from the bushes and they put them in towns. Here we are, living in towns and in concrete caves, as I call them. These concrete caves we call our homes. That's the domestication of the African I'm talking about. The wombs of the women have been domesticated. The sexuality of men has been domesticated, and the domestication process is something we may also want to call colonization. In simple words, colonization is domesticating of an African to make him a domesticated dog. So, Mr. Tapera, in all your wisdom, I'm sorry to mention that domestication is a psychological problem. It will make you think that when you insult a wild dog, you are a better domesticated dog. I'm sorry, that might sound quite very, very unpolite, but I cannot mention it or say it better than that. That even while you're listening to the illustration, you still cannot hear. You are the watchman at the door of the master to make sure that any threat to the institutions of thinking and the psychology of the thinking of the domesticated dogs is not disturbed. In fact, the agenda of the master must continue, and our welfare is sure. I don't blame you, Mr. Tapera, because eating leftovers has become your diet. And anything that seeks to give you a full springbok, a full animal which you can eat by yourself, it's not an idea that will cross your mind in another couple of years until you wake up from your sleep to discover that you are standing at the periphery, standing at the edge, the fence of the master and the jungle. You are just a fence away, literally a fence away. This side of the fence, that's where domesticated dogs live. That side of the fence, that's where wild, organic, indigenous dogs are surviving. And the illustration is a simple analog that reminds you that before you stayed here, before you became this, you were that. And that is not better than this. That is not worse than this. Yes, this looks more comfortable, and that looks more risky. But maybe that's what life is all about. It's your risk appetite. Would you rather continue as a domesticated dog? But some of us who have started to smell the excitement of the jungle, the excitement of living organically and indigenous, the excitement of reintegrating and relearning, remembering, reconnecting, re-establishing, re-hunting. You cannot die of hunger You cannot die of hunger, Mr. Domesticated Dog. The bush is here, right here, right here. You cannot wait only to go hunting only when the master has decided that let's go hunting. Maybe some of these comments, like Mr. Tapera is giving me, I want to blame them on the domesticated medicine, like COVID vaccinations. I don't blame you. Maybe you have been so domesticated that you feel you cannot even kill a rabbit by yourself. You must wait. Mr. Tapera, the boss is calling you. Boss is calling you. He wants to go hunting. And that's when Mr. Tapera would wake up and lift up his ears, wag his tail, and start looking, resurrect his nose, start sniffing around. What are you doing, Mr. Tapera? I am going to look for meat. I'm going to look for meat. Meat for who? I'm going to look for meat for the boss. The boss who? The boss is here behind me. And what I'm going to eat when the boss is killed, he's going to give me some hooves. He's going to give me some hooves. Man, it's painful. It's painful. It's painful. Reconnect, my brother. Reconnect. Alex Conga. Reconnect with the jungle. Reconnect with the jungle. It all begins with the change of mindset. Mr. Varashe recommends to us, Mr. Ru Varashe. It starts off with mindset change. Who are you? What are you? Who were you? What were you? And when you understand and you get fed up of leftovers, you get tired of being a watchdog outside, you get tired of sleeping outside when the boss is inside, you get tired of working for companies and industries of colonial systems while you're receiving a bicycle and a certificate at the end of 25, 30 years of labor. You get tired of being told what to do. You get tired of being beaten by the master. You get tired of eating bones. Eating bones, Mr. Tapera. When you finally wake up to discover I am not a bone eater. I'm not a bone eater. I also deserve to eat the liver. I deserve to eat the soft steak. I deserve to eat, I deserve dignity. Maybe you'll never understand some of these teachings that we're sharing with you. And every time you look at yourself as a better African, because you have better clothes, because you have better cars, because you have better medical aids, because you have better houses, because you have better this. But after you've made yourself better as a domesticated dog, psychologically you need to start fixing your mind, because you have left your destiny in the hands of the master. I've heard some other Africans say, oh well, eating hooves is African, you know. Eating chicken feet is African. Eating chicken intestines is African. You know, eating cheap leftovers of meat, that is African. Are you telling me that before the Africans became domesticated, they used to kill and only eat hooves? Are you telling me that before colonization, Africans only used to eat the intestines and they would throw away the rest of the food? No. We would eat everything, including the hooves, including the liver, including the kidneys, including the selenoids, including the T-bones. We would eat everything. But when the master came, Then he would cut all the hooves and then give them to the Africans and take all the meat and sell it in the choicest shops for his friends. And because Africans were living in such poverty, they would come back from work with bags full of chicken feet and chicken intestines. And then when they get home, they begin to sit around their families, and we even created a culture around chicken feet, created a culture around hoof eating. Hoof eating. Wow. One can only sit alone and wonder as to what kind of a mindset is that. And right here, and thank you, Mr. Ebenezer, for reminding us today is Kwame Nkrumah's birthday. And on Kwame Nkrumah's birthday, we are saying, Africa arise. Kwezi Taka, Africa arise. When they throw away bones at you, sometimes walk away from the bones. When they throw chicken feet at you, sometimes walk away from the you need to start asking yourself the question, when I'm eating these hooves, where is the liver? Where is the liver? Where is the T-bone steak? Where is it? This is not all. And for me, that's a new way of restructuring, rewiring our minds. That we need to start walking away from mental poverty, psychological damage. We need to walk away from mental slavery, religious colonization. We need to walk away mental psychology. What are the best medicines? Are these capsules? Are these herbs? We need to walk away from psychology of colonial institutionalization. How best can we live? How best can we survive? How best can we drive an African agenda that protects our well-being, our identity? And until we get there, we are not yet there. So I'd like to celebrate Kwame Nkrumah's birthday by making an announcement in their homestead. And their announcement is that the jungle is waiting. The forest is waiting. We have the skills. We have the speed. We have the nose and the eyes. We have capacity. We have ability to walk away from this homestead. And I have been accused of being confused because sometimes I speak religion, sometimes I speak culture, sometimes I speak that, oh, Maponga, please stick to one thing, stick to one thing. You're confusing us. No, we are not leaving any one of our tapera dogs in this homestead. We will walk into the bush, learn a little bit of what is in the bush. We will come back home and whisper to the other dogs that are still here, hey guys, there's more food out there. There's more food out there. We'll go back to the jungle and the caves. We learn a little bit from there. We'll come back to the domesticated dogs and say, hey guys, don't worry, man. I found a pool of water somewhere there. We can go drink together there. We'll walk back again into the jungle, learn a few herbs. We come back here. No, man, guys, don't need to die of cancer. There is a cancer bush there. There is a mamveva there. There's this herb and this herb. You can survive in there. We come back this other side. We check around and we find you eating bones. And say, no, man. They've just killed a fresh animal out there. You can also come and enjoy some soft liver and stuff like that. So with those few words, I want to say, man, we need to start thinking education, think business, think governance, think economics, think education, agriculture, sports and recreation, entertainment, health and technology. Ultimately, we need to start thinking, what is domesticated faith, spirituality? and what is organic indigenous faith, Ubuntu. And under domesticated spirituality, what are we worshiping? Who are we worshiping? Why are we worshiping? And even if a dog can go to church with its master, it will still remain outside, and the master goes inside. You escort, you walk together with him. You walk together with him to church, and then outside you stand. And those who are the owners of the buildings will walk into the church and speak to their gods. And when they finish that, then Poki, then they walk back with you home. So even escorting our masters to church does not make us masters. We still remain dogs protecting the very church where our bosses are enjoying themselves on the inside. When the Jews lift up their hands and call upon their God, Yahweh, Yah, Israel, and when they pray, you have chosen us, and what, and we are the, and you are there outside listening to the echoes of the master when the white man walks into church, and we are this, thank you God for giving us land and for giving us the jungle that is full of dogs. We thank you for protecting us from these wild animals, and we thank you for allowing and giving us power to harvest and collect some of these dogs and make them our pets. And some people are happy to hear the master mentioning their names. Thank you for Tapera. Thank you for... He barks very well. He barks very well, and he protects me in the night. Like, wow. Mental realignment, change of mind is a personal decision that we all must begin to make. Domesticated faith at the house of the master will never make you a master. You remain a dog at the doorstep of your mother, of your master. You remain a dog at the doorstep, at the fence of your jungle. You are not far from what you were. With those few words, I want to thank you for spending some time with me while we are celebrating Kwame Nkrumah's birthday. I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful day. Make one decision today. Which part of the master's habits and which elements in your domestications do you need to start weaning yourself away from? And with those few words, I want to thank you all for being with us here. And Mr. Bravery Maponga, you have made a career out of specializing in victimhood. Dear Africans, if you continue listening to this guy, you will lose it. We are living in a world our ancestors never dreamt of. There is much to be done in Africa, but life is vastly better than it was 150 years ago. You are now making a career out of victimhood. Well, you have a right to your own opinion, Mr. Bravery. I thought that your name was Brave, but I think you must remove the bravery to coward. I'm not specializing in being victim. When you realize that during the war you lost your legs, there is nothing wrong with you admitting. There's nothing wrong with you understanding that you are now a cripple. Some of your legs have been broken during the war. Looking for survival techniques, buying a set of crutches, learning how to walk with one leg. It's not specializing in being a victim. It's just realizing the amount of psychological damage that all of us, including myself, as recovering addicts of colonization, we have not yet reached the height of our potential. We needed to assess the situation of our disability, mentally, psychologically, and spiritually, and to realize that it's not to be a victim. It is an honest assessment of the damage caused and seeking for solutions going forward. So you're here on Farmers of Thought page, where we're discussing African politics, African science, African medicines, where we are looking at African problems and seeking for African solutions. Now, seeking for solutions is not being a victim. Seeking for solutions is honesty. It's honesty, Mr. Bravery. Bravery Makuvaro. Yes, if you give a man one leg, if a man chops off one leg, and then you give the man another chance, he will chop off the other leg, and you become wheelchair bound. So you don't give colonization a chance to continuously disable you. And then you come and say, that is victimhood. Or maybe you need to tell me better. Are the masters given permission to become perpetual abusers? Maybe you need to start, this is one side of the story. Maponga is specializing in victimhood. Maybe I need to understand, have you joined the abusers? Have you joined fully the colony of constantly abusing and victimizing the victims, and then you condemn them for realizing that they are being abused? And those who speak about the abuse, you say that they are specializing in victimhood. This is a typical coconut kind of a comment, where the domestication of the mind has reached your level. Life has become better. Life has become better. Has life become better? Our forefathers used to live 100 years, 120 years. Yeah, my grandfather went past 115, 120 years. And we are now dying at the age of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 sometimes. And if civilization is measured by longevity, are we living longer or we are dying faster? If civility is longevity, then how can you use the shortness of life and say that life is now better? We had less, but we lived longer. We had poorer houses, quote-unquote poor houses, organic houses, but we had family. We had no cities, but we had land. We had no hospitals, but we had gardens and forests from where we collected our medicines. We did not have cars because most of what we needed was right here. And maybe to realize that is maturity. Where we are, that's not where we used to be. And to reminisce and reflect on our past history and skills is a reason for an awakening. I thank you.